Hello everyone and welcome along to your Sunday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm your host this evening as we look back on what was the opening game for Rangers in the Scottish Premiership season. It didn't quite go how we'd all hoped, but there's plenty to talk about anyway coming out of it. And joining me to discuss it all and look ahead to the game against Dynamo Kiev as well on Tuesday, we've got John Walker and Kieran Wallace. How you doing, John?
Been better.
I think that can be said for as well. What about yourself, Kieran?
Doing well. 1 point better off than this time last year, and we kept a clean sheet. So let's start my positive now.
Well, you've taken all the potential positives I could have brought up in this podcast so far, so it's all downhill from here, everyone. But please do, point of comments coming in already. Please do share your thoughts on what we're discussing. Any thoughts on the game yesterday? Send them in. We'll bring as many as we can up on the screen and we'll get the chat moving. But just first of all, John, we'll come to you. In regards to the game yesterday at Tynecastle, we've had more than 24 hours now since the final whistle. What are your reflections now that the dust has settled a little bit?
It was just as expected. I watched that again this morning because, like, when you're watching it with your mates, you're kind of chatting, you're looking away, you're missing different things. So I watched that again. It was exactly as I remembered it being, exactly as I expected it to be. That's the thing that I think is bothering me the most. Is it's just predictable. It's nothing's changing, and it's. I don't mind the fact that we won't have a style of football that I desire, but everything else that bothered me is just the same as it's been there. I actually don't think we were any better second half. See, now that I've watched it back, I didn't think at the time. I thought listening to his comments that he was a bit off of that. I think Carl's just tired more than anything that we did.
Yeah, I think the second half, when I was watching the game, I felt like we're maybe a wee bit more in control. But I don't think we created anything that was dangerous in that second half. Really, the Dessers chance aside, maybe the one that hits the bar and the post. But we'll get into it. But I think what you said there, John, is fair. It's what we expected it to be, and I think that's hard in itself, because you always hope that you're maybe going to get a wee surprise or you're going to get a wee bit of a lift from somewhere. But there was very little positives apart from a clean sheet and being 1 point better off than we were last season. As Kieran said, there's not many positives outside of that. But Kieran, I think what really struck a lot of people was everyone's spoken a lot about this team needs rebuilt, that this team needs major surgery on this team, and it's felt like there's been an okay amount of transfer activity so far. Probably not as many experienced players as we're looking for, or anything of that nature. But there's been activity and we've been active. We've had players out the door. Then that starting lineup dropped yesterday, and everyone's looking at it going, "This is actually worse than the last game of last season," because we don't have John Lundstrom in there. And I know a lot of people didn't like the fact that Fluke come on and said in his post-match comments that we missed John Lundstrom, and I think he was talking more from an experienced, older head kind of mode rather than John Lundstrom, rather than John Lundstrom himself. But when I looked at that team, I was like, this is worse than it was at the end of last season, and last season was bad. Is that your reaction?
I agree with that, but I think probably the majority of Rangers fans, this is a complete culture shock. This is the rebuild that we should have had this time last year, and the fact that if you want rid of the full team, then you've got to expect that a rebuild's not going to be done in one window, like guys like Ross Wilson tried to do, and it just didn't work. And now we're picking up the pieces and cleaning up the mess. So if you want that team ripped up and rebuilt, then this is what you're getting, and this is the reality of it. In terms of seeing the team yesterday, I agree with John, it was pretty bland. Nothing had really changed, but again, I'm okay with that. My expectations are very low for this season, given where we are and what the here and now is. But there was a point in which Gerrard came in and the team had to go through a rebuild, and that wasn't rebuilt over one window, that was rebuilt over 3 seasons. And out the other end, you got guys like Aribo, Kamara, even Lundstrom to that extent, that all came in for mere buttons. That we didn't really spend that much money in that era. So that's kind of where we are in the here and now. So in terms of the game yesterday, when you see Scott Wright and Dessers starting, you're just like, even Tav to an extent now, right? Maybe not as bad as Wright and Dessers, and then your first substitute's Matondo. You've still got an idea of where we are in this rebuild, that we have a long way to go.
Yeah, I think the first substitute being Matondo took any wind out my sails that was starting to build at that point. I think that was just a real eye opener. And Matondo's one of those ones as well that's you kind of forget about when you're talking about the clear out and you're focusing more on the starting 11. But Matondo, his wages, his poor decision making, his lack of seeming football awareness on a football pitch is a bit mental. So he's definitely one that we need to kind of move out the door. But the problem is you've not got any clubs looking for him or trying to get him in anywhere near the wages that he's on currently. John, Mark McMinn says, I'm sure that the team that started yesterday will look a little different come the end of the month, but it will still not be enough. Going to have to accept it's going to take a season or two. One of the things Kyle and I discussed on the sort of immediate post-match reaction was that we've obviously been on a lot of podcasts in the pre-season and we've been trying to manage, I think, almost convince ourselves to manage our own expectations, never mind help other fans manage theirs. But how difficult is it seeing the reality on the football pitch versus talking about it on a podcast?
You know the Adam Sandler movie Click?
Yeah.
You seen that? I wish I could skip forward to next summer and just accept that it's going to be second place. It's going to be 15 points behind Celtic. There's going to be a lot of dark games. I think 5 points behind Celtic by the end of this month before we go on to our national break. I just wish I could skip this season and I can have this argument. Like, I've moved away from the idea that Clement's going anywhere. I don't really want it to. I'd rather the stability and just go, right, Niels Coppin has got this reputation. I think the transfers that he's done so far look good on paper. Just let him keep working. We're going to have to accept. I'm one of them. I'm critical. I keep getting called a purist or whatever it is. I like football played a very specific way. I don't like watching it any other way. And I'm just going to have to accept that that's not what I'm going to get out of Philip Clement, as long as it's winning. And I think it's going to be like, I said that about the 5 years. See if it's Champions League football by the third season and we're getting there regularly, and then it's titles and then it's cups continuously. It needs to be that rebuild. I think Kieran's hit the nail on the head with the Gerrard stuff. Like, we went through a lot of Jaria, Ojos before we found the Rebos and Kamaras. We went through all the same shite. It wasn't. I know Gerrard eventually got the results, but it was bad, man. We all watched a lot of rough games where, to be honest, even under Gerrard, you couldn't see what the style of play was. We were going, I don't really know what we're trying to do here. We're struggling to open Hamilton up. We're getting beat off Kilmarnock. I just don't see it. And then all of a sudden, there was very clearly a blueprint as to how you stopped Celtic, what you turned that around, and what it turned into. That's kind of where I'm at now. I'm just going, there might be a really, really snide 18 months to come.
But yeah. Is it, and like, sorry to butt in here, isn't this what we were after though? Like, we're showing signs that we're on the right track in terms of Coppin and Clement and extending Clement and trying to keep that stability. Now, we can only hope that behind the scenes things tighten up and get a bit more stable. But in terms of the rebuild, see the first 5 or 6 signings that were all under the age of 22? They're the type of signings we should be making every single season. Because see if you get one out of the 6 that's a unicorn and gives you a 15 million, 20 million pound transfer fee, then you've won a watch. That's the type of signings we should be making every season. But this is what we wanted. This is what it's going to have to take. I'm not being negative about it. The positives are, look at some of the guys that we brought in yesterday. I thought Diamande and Barron looked great again. Something to build on. These are the type of signs we need to be making. This is what we wanted.
Yeah, I think the problem for me is it's 12 months too late. I think that's 100%. I think that's the big thing. Is we all knew that this needed to happen, and I think for all that I was not a huge fan of John Bennett's video that he came out with, I think the one thing I did take from that is, right, okay, the board and the club have realised and are now saying publicly, we need to reset this. We've been on completely the wrong path. We've been going down the short term, just try and win it this season, we'll deal with next year kind of thing. They've clearly stopped that now. And I think obviously giving Clement the extended contract is a further sign of they're just committed to, he's the right guy. we're all aligned on this path. It's going to take the fans a little bit of time to come, and the fans, I think it will get really toxic amongst Rangers fans before it gets better. I think actually today the reaction has been worse than yesterday's reaction was, and that's because people have seen how Celtic played today, and they've made a direct comparison, and that's where the difficulty I think comes, especially in seeing the reality of what is quite a stark gap between the two sides, style of football, creativity in the final third, etc., etc. Now, all that could change. You could sign 3 or 4 players by the end of this month, and it all changes. I think my frustration is that the games in August matter. John mentioned earlier that he thought it would be sort of 4 or 5 points behind Celtic by the time we get to the winter break. That's obviously not the winter break, sorry, the international break, and that's obviously including the game against Celtic at Parkhead. I'm kind of that mentality as well. I hope we've got enough to win the 2 home games at Hampden, plus still be in the League Cup by the end of this month. But going by how we showed up yesterday at Tynecastle, I don't think we've got any hope of taking anything at Celtic Park, and that puts you in a really difficult position. And I guess the board have taken a bit of that away, Kyran, because they've taken any pressure, any potential for the manager to be sacked away, because they've given them a new contract. They've announced that that's done and dusted. So then the focus is then on the pitch. Where do you see the difficulties for Rangers fans this season? There's a lot of comments coming in saying we need to be patient, we need to accept that it's going to be painful, etc., etc. But it doesn't make it any easier.
That's the reality of being the manager for Rangers in front of Rangers fans. We must be the most impatient fans in the world, but we are the most demanding. If we're playing Brecon or Barcelona, it doesn't matter who it is, we expect to win. So when it comes to a rebuild, we expect that there's just 50 million sitting in the bank there to go and spend. And the reality of that is that it's not the case. It's probably completely miles from being the case. So it's been a tough rebuild, and probably the most frustrating thing for me is when Clement came in and we all get the lift, we all were under the agreement that Clement's, I think it was JB said it in one of the podcasts, Clement's the first proper manager that we've had in a long, long time, maybe since Smith. And he's kind of inherited this complete and utter mess. I mean, imagine giving Clement the money that we let bloody Beale run wild with. So, no, it is frustrating just now. A lot of the comments coming in and saying that let's judge it by the end of September. Come September when the window shuts. I agree with that, right? We'll get a real lift if a number 6 and a striker comes in. I really believe that we'll do it. We will.
I think though, Kyran, my frustration is that the season starts on the 3rd of August. It doesn't start in September. We've got what, 4 domestic games plus 2, potentially 4 Champions League qualifiers in that time. You can't just we can't just write those off as a club because we've got time to get to the end of the transfer window, so we'll take that time. We need to. I think there were some clear positions, like you say, a number 6. We probably needed a centre half, number 6, a right winger, and a striker. Those have to be had to be the priorities. Sorry, as we went through this summer. I think we've got the centre half in Robin Proper. I think it looks like we've probably got our right winger for this season in terms of Václav Černý. That number 6 and the striker. And I think the striker had to be top of all the lists.
Yeah.
We've not got that in yet, and it feels like you're almost surrendering some points before you even get going, and you're finding yourself behind the 8 ball.
I agree. I half agree with you, Craig, but see at the same time, look around world football now. There's not much transfers going on. Like, it's a bit of a stale market, and I think the Euros holds that up, and the Copa America as well. So it's not just us, put it that way, and we can't be looking to panic by the way we have in the past. We've got to be smart about it. The business we've done so far on paper is very, very good. Proper being the one that really jumps out to me. That is a very, very good bit of business if things work out for them, which I really hope they do. But you're right, striker is a complete and utter priority. And I know we'll get on to that, but I think a striker coming in and a 6, that's what the fans are crying out for just now. It would really give us a lift. In terms of the squad, it's very, very thin. I don't know what happens with Hadji. I don't know what happens with Cantwell. What if one of them stays? I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world.
I think it's hard. I think they're very different situations because Hadji just seems to be out of favour. He doesn't seem to be anywhere near Clement's plans. He seems to be on his way out the door, and his agents kind of finding him that way. Whereas Cantwell's almost trying to force a move. So I think they're very different situations in terms of if they stay, how do you integrate them back into the squad? I'm not sure. I know Clement kind of backtracked a bit on his initial comments on Cantwell, but I'm not sure there's a way back for him. Anytime he misplaces a pass, anytime he has a bad game, the fans are just going to be right on top of him, even worse than they have been last season. And the sort of when he said I think he's finding it difficult in terms of the pressure from the fans and the constant focus on him and his social media, etc. So I think Cantwell's a struggle. I think more people would be much more welcoming to Hadji coming back in. Kieran, do you think Cantwell or Hadji playing yesterday would have helped?
I think so. I just felt Lawrence looked so flat. I mean, his volley off the crossbar is probably something very few players can do, that technique to get your shot away so quickly when things are happening at such a pace. But to me, put it this way, right? Put it this way. If Lawrence gets injured, who plays there?
Yeah, that's
where we are.
Cantwell's the only one. We'll come on to talk about
do
we actually need a number 10 or should we be switching that midfield. But before we do, John, you've spoken about the fact you watched the game twice now for your sins. But I think what are the big areas of concern that kind of stuck out for you?
Mate, it's the long ball again. I think I noticed it at the time, but I thought I must have imagined it. Like 45 seconds in, we've got a goal kick. Jack Button puts the goal kick down and puts it straight through to their keeper. And I'm like, how's that the starting point? How's that how you feed your way into a game away at Tynecastle, try to get players to touch the ball, try to get people relaxed, and that's what we're doing, is sharing a ball. I don't mind doing that if you've tried for 10 minutes and they've pressured you and they've made it hard for you to play out. But our starting point's hoofing the ball at the park, and that's baffling to me. You can have whatever style of play you want, I don't mind, but that's not a style of play. That's just gambling on the ball. Dessers isn't a combative striker. Never seen Dessers effectively hold a ball up, effectively competing there for a ball where it's went to somebody. There's nothing happening there. The only time that worked was when we had Sima and we were going out to the left with Sima. That was when we won most of those headers and had something to do. That was a concern. The amount of times that it feels like, don't get me wrong, I think Diomande was guilty of overplaying and taking too many touches, but he's getting the ball in the half turn and looking, and there's nobody available because the wingers are too high close to fullbacks, the 10 and 9 are too close to each other, and people are going, he needs to shift it quicker. To who? Does he just go back to Butland and we do the same thing again? Yeah. Like the reason Diomande and Barron, I think, misplays so many what look like simple passes is because I think people don't know where them. I think people are where they're meant to be. I don't think Diomande and Barron should really be picking up the ball off of people if there's not going to be people in the right areas to get the ball off them. I looked at Cherny and Matondo are two natural out and out touchline wingers, and the way we want to play is inside 10s. Rabbi Matondo can't trap a bag of cement. And you're asking him to go inside the pitch in a 10 area when he needs a good first touch, tight control, and the ability to pass to somebody next. Cherny was good enough to do that and found Tavernier a few times a wee drag back and flick around the corner. Matondo's not. Matondo's awful. That's nowhere. Matondo's good at just knocking the ball almost and being quick. Like, as generic as it is, that is what it is. He's just not got what that needed to be. And do you know what as well? See the way... Again, I don't want to get in the way of like moaning about a style of play because I've already said we need to accept that's not going to happen. Your wingers invert when your fullbacks are going past. We're inverting when there's no fullback going past. It's the same as the Beale issue. There's nobody occupying high and wide. So teams can just saturate the middle of the park and have the fullbacks free. And that was why that boy Taylor looked so good, because anytime they won the ball, they were able to counter with him because of how narrow we were. Like that's what kept happening on his side, because Cortez kept coming inside, which he's clearly told to do, because Matondo was doing it as well. And when it's breaking to a fullback who's then bombing on. The 3 or 4 times he broke up the park was because we were so narrow in that area and there's nobody occupying that space. It just seems a bit baffling to me that I've watched it back and felt the exact same way in the first viewing and felt that was what it was going to be like beforehand. So if I'm working for any other club in Scotland and I'm analysing Rangers, I don't need to do anything different. I know how they're going to play and where I need to flood and where we can probably break. And it's going to be quick in counter-attack channel areas, because I also know that Ben Davies, John Souttar and Leon Balogun can't really defend a channel ball properly. Balogun maybe being a bit harsh on because he can do it. But they're weak, and kind of banking on proper being a solution to that problem, or us getting better players and more control in the game.
Yeah, I think there's so many bits to unpick there. There's so many areas that we will get stuck into. I think, first of all, Kyran, I think John spoke, the very first point he made was that we're just punting the ball. We're not even trying to play out from the back. I think Connor Goldson seemed to be the central piece of that last season. He was always the one that was taking the ball off Butland, taking it in his own box and starting to. It tended to be Butland to Goldson to Tav, and that was how we started to sort of play out from the back. There doesn't seem to be any appetite at all from that. I'm hoping when Robin Proper comes in, he seems to be good on the ball with both feet, so I'm hoping that's the case. The concern is that Souttar and Davies are both supposed to be ball-playing centre-halves, because they're not physical centre-halves, as we've seen, and neither of them are taking responsibility for how we're playing. I think our defence just seemed at 6s and 7s yesterday, Kyran. I don't know what's the best way to describe it. John, you made a really good point earlier in the week around how our defenders and the attributes that we look for, largely when the long ball's hit over, they're kind of looking to let the ball go over their head and go through to Jack Butland, and then the play starts from there. I was watching out for that yesterday, and John Souttar tried it twice, and the ball hit him on the head twice as he tried to duck to let the ball through, and it went straight to Kenneth Vargas the first time. I can't remember who it went to the second time, but the first time it went straight to Kenneth Vargas, and he was running through on our goal. Kyran, how much of firstly on John Souttar, I kind of went in on him a bit yesterday on the post match, but how much of a concern is he, and why do you think the player we expected to get and the player that we saw at Hearts just hasn't turned up in a Rangers shirt at all?
Has he maybe been overhyped before we've signed him because of the interest in him, given that it was a Bosman signing? Possibly, but look, I'm a big John Souttar fan. I believe that it can come good. His Rangers career's not exactly been glittering at the moment, but he has got all the attributes there to be a good centre-half for Rangers. It's not shown just now, but like you said, it's concerning that he's not really produced what we expected that he should produce. I was having a wee think there when you guys were talking. We were talking about Proper coming in. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Balogun and Proper as the centre-back pairing. Whether or not Balogun's got 60 games that season in him, I don't think so. But for me, that's a very experienced centre-half pairing. Probably do have to sign one more in there. One thing I will say is what I liked from Clement yesterday, sorry to go off course with your question, Craig, taking Ben Davies off, seeing that he was struggling with the physical battle with Shankland, and who was the other striker they were up against? Vargas, yeah, he struggled against him, so that is a positive to take, that Clement thought, right, okay, I've got a more physical, more demanding centre-back on the bench. Let's get him on there. Let's try and squash that. And it did. It worked. It worked for a bit. But in terms of Souttar, we expect so much more from him. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing another centre-back coming in. But again, right, we talk about the defensive problems. Does a number 6 solve this? I think it would really help having a number 6, because I feel like Connor Barron, what I've loved about him the most is how he wins. He seems to nick the ball pretty high up the park. He's pressing up the pitch is excellent. A 6 with Barron and Diamondi's 2 pressing 8s would work perfectly. I think the two of them are absolutely made to go and win the ball higher up the pitch and play well with it. But I think a bit more protection in front of the back four would go a long, long way. We talk about going long and going over the top and whether to play short. If you've got a 6 in there linking your play, it makes life a hell of a lot more easier for a defender when he's not having to go back to the goalkeeper or go to fullback every single time. So I think having a proper 6 there would definitely help. I need to stop using the word proper in that context there. I'm just going to get a bit confused.
A couple of comments before we come to you, John. Sobo says, if I had the choice of Suter or a lump of wood, I would choose the wood because at least it can be used to fix my fence. Davies Flicks says Suter's a fourth choice defender and Balogun still being a starter would show how behind this team is. John, just in terms of the overall setup, and I think Kieran kind of touched on a bit when he started talking about would a new number 6 sitting in there really help us, but I think the conversation has really been, should we persist with that number 10 role? And it might be that, I can see you shaking your head already, but it might be that we should, but Tom Lawrence isn't that person. Or do you think we should, the alternatives are moving to a solid 3, which we obviously played more under Steven Gerrard, or moving to that 1-sitter, 2 pushing forward piece? Where do you think, what do you think would strengthen us and make us, firstly, more solidly defensively, but also give us control of possession and take back control of games, which we seem to have lost in the last 4 or 5 months of football we've played?
Yeah, it's always it's the 1-sitter and 2 in front for me. It doesn't need to be 2 natural 8s or 2 natural 10s. Just as long as there's 1 sitting and 2 supporting, because you can actually press people properly in the right areas. For me, like I seen somebody say about Suter in a 5. I totally agree. And see, for me, this is where I get a lot of frustration with Clement decision making. We clearly adapted in the second half to moving Barron in between centre halves. And I've said this a few times. I'm a big John Suter fan, so everyone can start abusing me right now. John Suter's weaknesses for me is he's came through at Dundee United and Hearts, where he wasn't really ever exposed to a high line or exposed to 1v1 defending in those critical areas. So as much as I love John Suter and think he was the right signing and think he was a good signing at the time, he was never exposed to that. He was playing in the Hearts in a back 3, very protected, and teams sitting off. So really for John Suter, it was being the spare man. It was actually good in the air. So I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if it's a bit of confusion with other centre-halves or a confidence being shot. See, for me, John Suter's key attributes are driving with the ball, passing the ball forward, and kind of organising a little bit in front of him. See, when you've not got a 6 and you've got Leon Balogun, who's played against Hearts, who's good at defending the box, who's the most experienced defender at the club, I would have preferred to see like a John Suter sitting in the 6 and using them to go back in a back 5 if they wanted to play out that way. Because I felt like you just had a straight line of Barron, Diomande and Lawrence, and you couldn't get Barron to get the ball to Diomande, and you couldn't really create anything. Yeah. And Hearts still had that threat going long. I think when you don't have a natural 6, I think maybe you make do. And I actually wouldn't be opposed to like a John Suter being in there just for a bit of physicality as well, because I think Barron, Diomande being slight of size, I just don't like Tom. I don't dislike Tom Lawrence, but I don't like Tom Lawrence playing in this Rangers team. I just think he looks... I must be imagining it, because I'm sure his stats are up there. I'm sure he's covering all the same ground, but he just looks... Anytime we lose the ball, him and Dessers just look like it's head down and forget there's a job to do when you lose the ball. Yeah, it's astonishing, mate, how many times I've seen that in the second half.
I think that's what we're seeing in terms of Dessers and Lawrence, is that Dessers, I think when you're at the game, you see the amount of effort he puts in chasing people down, but he's putting in hard yards for no gain, because he's chasing the ball between 3 defenders and they're just passing it around them. Lawrence, it just seems non-existent in a press, and I think that's where it breaks down in many places. But I think that's kind of the first place it breaks down, because Dessers goes, but Lawrence doesn't go with him or even potentially know where to go, and it just breaks down instantly at that point. And I think it's so noticeable, but it's so easy for other teams to play around, and it leaves Diomande and Barron exposed, which then in turn leaves the central defensive areas exposed, and we're in trouble, and we're on the back foot. Kieran, in terms of Tom Lawrence, I think we all have an idea in our head of how good a footballer he is, or he should be, or he has been in the past, but I think I have to agree with John, and I don't think he fits into this Rangers team and how we want to play.
It stretches the absolute life out of me. You can tell there's a player in there, but in terms of the 10, like you guys said, we should have a 10 that can go and press high up the field. He's not mobile enough. The other thing that gets me as well is, if we're serious about a rebuild and a player trading model, he's got a year left in his deal. He's on really good money at Rangers. Is he the next one that we're going to walk away? Is going to walk away for free?
I think we've set a £5 million asking price according to reports.
That's mad. That's absolutely mental for a guy we got for nothing. That's not produced anything in a big game yet. Well, let's be honest. Like, can any of you guys sit here and tell me where Tom Lawrence really influenced in a big game where a number 10 should? Nah, he's not. He's not done it at all for me. So a more mobile 10 would sort of be high on the transfer list for me. But again, I think a flat 3 would start to suit a wee bit better. A 6 with 2 8s, like we discussed. I actually think Raskin, Barron, and Diamande would be a very good middle 3. You've got 2 dogs in Barron and Raskin, and you've got Diamande, who's technically an excellent player, could play in front of them. Hope I'm not doing them any disrespect by calling them dogs there, but you get what I mean. They're hard-working midfielders that enjoy winning the ball back and carrying it. So I think that would work well. But again, we're so thin there. In terms of the 10, it's just not worked. I don't even know where we would go for there. Funnily enough, Hearts playing Shankland at 10 yesterday was very interesting.
Did you think that took us by surprise in the first half, and that was part of the reason we struggled?
I think it might have, yeah. I remember when he first signed with Hearts, they'd done that quite regularly, but I feel like he fell out of the game a lot of the time, but just shows that he can play there. But again, that wouldn't suit us. We need somebody that's mobile, that can go and sort of stop other teams playing out for the back and playing through ourselves. We need to be harder to beat, put it that way. And everything we do, you need to defend from the front. We're not defending from the front, we're defending from midfield backwards.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think we just seemed so off it in so many areas yesterday that it's actually hard and very depressing to talk about them all. But I think one of the things that's really concerning for me, John, is that teams are still finding it so easy to get through and get on to attacking our backline and into dangerous attacking positions. Hearts created so many chances yesterday. They weren't necessarily the best opportunities, but if you give a team enough chances, they are going to score eventually, and they'll likely score more than one. And when you come up against a better quality opposition, we're going to come on later in the podcast talk about Dynamo Kiev, who scored 9 goals in the last qualifying round. But I think when you give teams enough chances, Hearts had more than enough chances to score yesterday, that you're eventually going to put yourself in trouble. And it was an issue we had last season as well, in terms of we were conceding the first goal so many times that it just gives yourself a mountain to climb. How do we fix that? Is it as simple as a 6, or is it how do we become more rigid defensively?
I keep saying this, but I keep harping back to this. We just need to have our best 11 available, and that 11 needs to perform perfectly every week to stop this happening. Butler needs to pull off the saves that he's making. The defenders need to eradicate their mistakes. The midfielders are going to have to run 12 to 13k, which is 2k more than I think a midfielder for Rangers should be covering, especially without the ball. We're all over the place, mate. And the Shankland thing shouldn't surprise people, because he did that quite a lot last year as well, played as a 10, to let Fargas be the one that was running in behind the channel to try and pull one of the spare defenders in there. So these things shouldn't be catching us out. If we have equipped analysts doing the bloody job, which I don't think we do, and pointing out clear and obvious things that are happening continually, if they are, and it's being ignored, or we think this is better, that's fine. But I think this is where I think it's a bit annoying being a fan in the modern day football, is you're still treated like you were 20 years ago. You're not given really any insight. Clement turns around in a press conference and says he could have made 8 changes in a press conference just at half time, and a half that he didn't make any changes, and then doesn't even allude to which players or which areas were causing actual concern. It's just generic statements. And see, if you make those heat of the moment type statements, it's when people start to get on your case, because then they start pulling out the Cantwell or Reece decision. You go, are you too emotional? Are you too involved? And not able to sit down and relax and look back and go, instead of saying right after a match, I could have made 8 subs at half time. You never made any. You've got 5 afforded to you. If you could have made 8, why did you not change any of them? Yeah,
I think so. And I was sitting watching a game with Kyle yesterday, and we spoke about the fact that we won't make any subs till the 60th minute, and you just it's in that kind of the same approach in every game kind of thing, and it's frustrating because you can see it going wrong. And Kyran, I think one of the most frustrating things to me, and we saw it a bit in the early days of Gerrard as well, was that the team a lot of the time would come out and not perform in the first half. They'd get a rocket up their backside at half time, and then all of a sudden we'd start playing how how we want us to play or start more towards a clear strategy and we take control of a game. That seems to be exactly what's happening again, and it's insanely frustrating.
It is, and that soon catches up on you if you don't sort it out pretty quickly. Again, I'm willing to give this team the benefit of the doubt. I was quite happy to see Cherny coming on. I think he looked bright. I think he looks like he could be a good signing, if you want to call it that. I know he's on loan. He looked like he linked up with Tavernier well, so having a proper right winger in front of Tavernier could make a difference. Maybe not as much to Tav defensively because we know how frail he can be, but in terms of going forward and having an out ball on that side, I think it's definitely a good thing. But it's now who we put round about him. So it is. I know what you're saying, Craig. It is frustrating, but I think as well when you look at that team that started yesterday, the players that started, and how everyone felt about it. When you're looking at a team sheet that's, I'll say it again, Ben Davies, Tavernier, Wright, Dessers, the same faces that let us down over and over and over again. Now we're going to be without Cortez. It's quite a sore one, but there is players there to freshen it up. I think if you've seen on Tuesday night, if we started Danilo through the middle, if you started Cherny out wide, things start to look a wee bit brighter in that sense. If we started proper at centre-back, it would give the fans a small lift. I know we'll get on to discuss how we think Kiev will look. But yeah, in terms of the team, I think we say this over and over again, we're going to have to be patient, and that's just the bottom line of it all.
Yeah, I just want to bring up this point. You mentioned Cherny there, and I saw John nodding along. John, Pete Lawrence says, I thought Cherny looked way off it. What were your thoughts on Cherny?
He looked like he'd missed a good chunk of pre-season and not particularly match fit and not played the minutes. I think you can go back, there was two overlapping runs with Tavernier where he's popped inside the left back and then played it around the corner. Nice tight little passes. And there was one he pulled back to the edge of the box as well when Tavernier had underlapped him. There's little signs, don't get me wrong, he never done anything groundbreaking where you're going to be like, oh my God, we've got a player there. But I do think if you look at it back and maybe just kind of watch his wee cameo, a few bad touches, but those will be expected. He's not played the same amount of minutes as everyone. He's not up to the same speed. But I actually do think there was wee tidy moments in there. And I did look at him and go, you know what, actually that looks like somebody that might be all right. I just would say again, I didn't like the fact of how narrow he was. He looks like somebody to me, you give him the ball on the line and let him go do what he wants. But I actually thought I thought he was tidy. To be honest, I don't think God, this bad. I don't think anyone was terrible yesterday. Like I don't think anyone I was like, oh my God, they were awful. I just think nobody was good.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's a few comments talking about Kieran. You mentioned Cortez, and there's a few comments around him. He obviously went off. I think there's got to be a question mark over why he came back out after half time when he was clearly injured and could have been one of the 8 changes that Fleetwood made at half time, I guess. But it's a real concern, and there are some rumours going around in some forums that it's an ACL and he's out for the season. Nothing's been confirmed by the club or anything like that. It's just rumours at this stage. But how much of a concern is that if he's out for an extended period of time when he's definitely been bought as our first choice left winger?
I think not just for us as fans, but for him personally as a player that's come back from a serious injury. He's a 20-year-old guy that's come to the other side of the world to make a career for himself. And if that was the case, then it's an absolute gut wrencher. But I'm going to try and be a bit positive and be pessimistic about it here. Optimistic. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting mixed up. Am I right in saying when you get knee injuries like this, you can't even get a scan until the swelling goes down? So if it was that bad, then I don't think they would have an answer so quickly. Given how it looked, it didn't look like a bad knee injury. Do you know what I'm meaning by that? As in, like, there's always a telltale signs of the sort of knee wobbling out the way or in the way the knee shouldn't go as a hinge joint, really, that you can tell if someone's done like a serious ACL sort of injury. So it was weird because he went over in his ankle and held his knee. And then he came out the second half and it didn't look... It's an odd one. It really is an odd one. I hope he's okay and I hope it is just minimal and he doesn't miss the season because especially for Clermont and Coppin, and I know we chased Cortez for a long time and we've now finally managed to get him on a long-term deal, that you're kind of like, right, where is our luck? Like, because that's what you felt yesterday when he went off.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones, and I get concerned. See when it looks like something really innocuous, but the player just is really struggling and can't continue. It's always a bit concerning for me on that one. It's going to be a watch this space piece, but the concern is that if we've obviously committed a certain amount of money on an obligation to buy for him, and if he's out for a prolonged period of time, then we need to go again and find another left winger to come in there. A lot of people are saying Sima. I think people want Sima to play about 3 positions at the same time, but also Sima was injury prone last year as well. He's not the golden bullet that's going to solve all our problems if we do end up going for him. John, I'm going to talk about your favourite subject, which is Cyril Dessers. Cyril Dessers yesterday, I think, put in a Cyril Dessers performance. His movement was good. He was getting in the right areas. He just didn't have the composure to find the back of the net. I thought the one that I thought he was really unlucky with was the header that deflected off the guy.
Mate, disagree. I'm so fed up with this one. I've watched this now 7-8 times. See that header? See any good striker? Lawrence Shankland. There's a moment where Dessers is running towards that ball and stops to get ready to head the ball. And that gives Frankie Kent or Kai Rolls, whatever one gets a flick on it, the chance to get back in front of him. Any other striker that's good and potent keeps his run going and catches that with the side of his head in at the far corner. He's wanting to plant it and stops doing what he's doing, and that gives a half second for that defender to get back in. The reason he doesn't score that is because he stops. Any other striker's running full speed across that defender, and it's a glanced header into the goal. He's trying to power it, and you watch him again. He stops for a split second. He plants his feet, and it lets Rolls, I think it is, to get back in front of him and gets that flick on it. I actually still think he should score the header when he gets to it as well. I don't think Kai Rolls should be able to even block it, but he stops in his footing, and that's what infuriated me, because it's those little tiny things that I go. I think Fulkrug scored a very similar type of header at the Euros. They don't stop moving. They keep moving, and they know they're going to head it whilst they're moving. They don't stop to hit the ball. They keep moving as they're going across people. The one that goes to Matondo at the back post for a header, Dessers is moving back behind the defender. Everyone knows, one, Matondo is not known for his aerial ability, but two, Matondo is definitely going to head that back across goal. You need to be moving to the front post in front of the defender, because he's only going to head it into that area. It's this lack of instinct all the time that is why we do not want him at this club anymore. Like, genuinely, it's infuriating.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Shankland. You mentioned Shankland there. I'm sorry for interrupting your rant, but you mentioned Shankland there, and I think a game like yesterday is just provides that stark comparison where you think if Shankland had been in our team, we are 2 or 3-0 up, and sitting comfortably with the chances that we created, and that was even without us playing particularly well. But I think it's that stark comparison is really what I found frustrating.
It's not quite the same chance, but see the one he takes the good touch with his right foot and it's on his left that he hits through 2 players off the goalkeeper. It's kind of not too dissimilar to Shankland's position where he scores the screamer against Hibs last New Year on his weak foot, and Shankland curls it into the top far corner. And that's the clear gap that was available for Dessers to hit. Gets it on target, that's fine. But Dessers always gets his shots on target because they're not potent enough. They're just percentages. Even the 2 goals he scored against Hearts in the semi-final, they were both hit straight at the keeper. Yeah. Like, even the non-critical goals he is scoring aren't good finishes. This is the frustration. So that one, I know it's not too similar, but it looked like that was it. And then there was another one in the first half again where Lawrence, I think, has got the ball on the touchline, on the byline. He's running towards the byline. Dessers is in the penalty spot to start with, and we've got Diamonde and Cortez on the edge of the box. And Dessers also pulls back onto the edge of the box for a pullback. And I'm just like, that's it for me. That's where I'm going. Like, looking at even at Celtic with Kyogo. Kyogo's in that 6-yard box every single time for that tap in, because he knows that's where you want to put the ball. And I'm just going, like, at 29 years old, somebody who's been around clubs, Cyril Dessers doesn't really have an instinctive bone in his body about being a centre forward. It's almost too thought out what he's trying to do all the time. And yeah, I also think yesterday I seen Lawrence Shankland link up play well, hold the ball in well. There was the one where he held the ball in on the touchline, came back out onto his left foot whilst he was getting chased by Lawrence, and then hits a shot into the far corner. There seems to be like a myth that Lawrence Shankland is just a goal scorer. Lawrence Shankland's a good hold-up striker and a good link player. Lawrence Shankland's a good footballer. The only thing Lawrence Shankland genuinely lacks is proper pace. But I also don't think he's as immobile as everyone makes him out to be.
Yeah.
He maybe looks at in a Hearts team when he comes up against Rangers and Celtic, or a Scotland team when they're out of possession, you need him to do more. But if he's in a team that tries to dominate the ball and create chances and get players close to him, I just don't think there's not a better player available for under £5 million. I think you get him for a lot less than that, by the way. But there's not a better player available, and he is available.
Yeah, Kieran, I was going to bring up Callum Beatty's comment. Welcome along, Callum. Good to see you. It says that Cyril Dessers is our key issue. Too many opportunities thrown away, and we struggle to sit on the Hearts bench. Firstly, do you agree with that? And secondly, Hearts have come out and said they want £5 million. John said he thinks he'd get them for much less. I think they were talking about it yesterday in the build-up to the game that there appears to be an appetite on Shankland's side that if the deal can happen, he'd like it to. Would you just bite the bullet and pay the money at this stage?
Not so much in terms of Shankland. I think we should be spending the money on a younger striker at this point, because strikers are where you can really make some serious money. So if we've got a young striker that we can progress and score goals, I think.
Do you not think that's what Igamani is though? And the player that we're looking for is someone who's just going to come in and hit the ground firing and get us those goals straight away.
Kind of, but it almost seems that Igamani's not even fit enough to play for an Army's team at this point. So maybe we'll see him about Christmas or something like that. But no, I agree with Callum. My uncle's Callum's biggest fan, and he's also Desser's biggest fan, so he's going to absolutely hate that when I show him. But no, I agree. It's an issue. It really is an issue, because we've spoken about it already. The 10 being able to press and the striker being able to press, and we all agree that we need to be more mobile in that sense. We need players that have got more ability in their roles that can sort of stop teams from playing out from the back, and Dessers doesn't give us that. He gets a power of work, and I was texting my cousin during the game, and the chance we spoke about where he brought it down with the right, brilliant touch, cut inside, brought it on his left. And I said to him, he's done so well to create that chance, but he showed no composure whatsoever. And what I actually said was, I'm going to save that to my notes so I can just copy and paste it every single week. Because we've seen this movie so many times before. A wee bit of composure and we win that game 1-0, aka SEMA last year when we went there. So for me, if I had a chance to sign, I know they're completely two different ends of the spectrum. SEMA or Shankland, I'd be spending my money on SEMA, someone that's younger, probably get a chance to create a bit of revenue in years to come. I know he does come with his injury problems. So be it. That's where we are just now. But do you know what? I wouldn't scoff at any of them just now. If Shankland came in, I'd be absolutely delighted. But it will be interesting. I know the boy that was the sporting director, his name escapes me, at Hearts, is now in the market. I hope that maybe he would turn up at us one day, because the signings that Hearts have made, and yesterday it looked like they've got a few rough diamonds in there. I wouldn't be opposed to us going along the same track as how they've been working on their squad and how their club's been run.
Yeah, I was impressed by Taylor yesterday. John obviously mentioned him earlier on and how we facilitated him having a good game. But I think I was impressed by him, his pace, his quality on the ball, all of that. And I think he'll be one to watch as we go forward in this season. M1872 says, pay the £5 million for Shankland. It'll be a difference between success and failure, and success is worth far more than the £5 million outlay. I think I have to agree with that one, if I'm honest. So hopefully it's a watch this space and we'll see a striker in the door sooner rather than later. A big part of me hopes it's this week, but that's maybe a bit too optimistic for even me. Right, let's have a look at the upcoming game against Dynamo Kiev on Tuesday. I think it's one we're all kind of dreading a little bit after seeing the results that they had. They came through what initially looked like quite a tough tie against Partizan Belgrade, winning 6-2 at home before then winning 3-0 away. They ran Shakhtar Donetsk close for the league last year. I was listening to a podcast earlier and I said that it's hard to judge how good Dynamo Kiev are based on the previous round, because I think due to the political situation in that area of the world, Serbia have shown their support for Russia in many ways, so that had really fired up the Dynamo Kiev team, and they were just out to basically batter them on the football pitch as hard as they could across both legs, and that's absolutely what they did. Interestingly, Dynamo Kiev's game was cancelled this weekend, and their game in between the two legs is also cancelled, so they're literally just playing us over the next 2 weeks. And apparently from what I've read, defensively they're quite weak, but attack is where they've got real prowess, and they've got some real young players in the spine of their team, alongside some experienced heads like Yarmolenko, who are really working well together and will really create a threat going forward, which is, I'm sure, what everyone wants to hear when we've just spent 45 minutes talking about defensive issues. John, first of all, how are you feeling as we head into that game? I guess you would probably look at it and say, well, Dynamo Kiev don't have any home advantage because their home leg's been played in Poland. Our home leg's at least been played in Glasgow, albeit not at Ibrox. But how are you feeling as we head into this one?
I mean, not confident. I think I've already kissed goodbye of any hope that they'll be hearing Champions League tunes at Ibrox this season. I really think they're going to be too good for us. I think the way they played against Partizan, albeit I've only seen 10-minute highlights, it was all the things that really scare me about how Celtic play against us. It's going to be overflooding that middle of the park. They are good. They've got the confidence of putting 9 goals past 2 people. We've scored 1 goal, I think, in pre-season. Well, I suppose it is before the Union Berlin game. But we've scored like a handful of goals for open play. I don't see where we cut this team open effectively enough. I'd be like, it'd just be hope more than expectation at this point. I think they will carve us open. Shaparenko, Ivana, you've already mentioned Yarmolenko, but from what I've seen, they look like the perfect team that will take advantage of the chances they're going to get against us. Because, like you said, every game we've seen, there's been chances against us. I don't see that changing. So it's how good are teams at taking them. Scored 9 goals in 2 games against Partizan Belgrade. I think they're going to be fine.
It's a concern, and I'm not going to go into the game on Tuesday night full of hope. But I think I've already written off Champions League football. But I was more focused on the domestic game and how we're going to do with that. We're guaranteed you'll play group stage. Yes, if you get through this round of the Champions League qualifying, you get another, I think it's £4.8 or £5 million, which could be the difference of Lawrence Shankland or not. But let's not quite go that far just yet. But Kyran, as we head into this, we know and we've heard that Dynamo Kiev are a really good side, a positive side, and they're a side on the up as well from that. But from a Rangers perspective, how do you think we need to approach this game?
I think it's simple, really. Like, keep them at bay, keep in the tie after the first leg. They're a good team. You don't get mugs at this level. So if we were to come away from that first leg still in the tie, bringing it back to Glasgow, then I think that would be a real positive for us. Like you say, there is an incentive there for getting through this round at very least, and it's money that we're desperate for at the moment. I think we can go there and keep it tight. I think that's the way to go about it. I think we go there and keep it tight, try and hit them on the break with what little selection we have. It's hard not to laugh, because if you don't, you'll cry. In terms of them as a team, John's outlined it completely. They are a really good young side that like to do well going forward. We won't trouble anybody at the back. We know that at the moment, unless it's somebody else starting up front. It's not Dessers. So it's going to be interesting. But like I said, hopefully we can go away from home. We can set up well. We can set out a stall to try and stop them score 9 goals, try and stop them scoring 1, and bring the tie back home to Glasgow and use our seeding to our advantage. So I think that is going to be the main thing, that this tie isn't over after the first leg, because I do believe that with the crowd behind our team on a European night, we can do anything. So bring the tie home to Glasgow and we'll be fine. I'm trying to put a positive spin on it.
That's a very optimistic view of that one. John, I think one of the main concerns I have as we head into European games is our strength has really been, when we've done well in Europe, it's being solid defensively. And we've spoken at length at this podcast about the fact that we're not solid defensively. But even then, I think I've never seen this team drop into, I guess, a 4-5-1 effectively, where they are rigid and then we can hit on the break. I've got massive concerns about our ability to hit on the break and not just give them the ball back. But even that defensive formation as such, especially away from home, I don't really have confidence that even that Philippe Clement will almost take on that formation and sit in that 4-5-1. I've just got this, I guess it's almost a fear that he's just going to stick with the 4-3-3 and go at it like that. How do you think we'll approach it formation wise? And do you have confidence that we can find that solidity, I guess, defensively?
What I can't understand is, and don't get me wrong, if everyone remembers the Prague away game, when we played a back three, the first half was horrible. The first half was dreadful. But we actually played really well after like the 55th, 60th minute mark when we got Danilo on the pitch. That was the last time we played a back five. See, if I'm going away to Kiev and we've got these problems and our defence doesn't look solidified, I would be 3-5-2 in this game all day long. And if Sterling's fit, Sterling, Diomande, Barron is a free midfield, play Dessers because you have to. And then I would choose one of the wide men to play up front with Dessers and then drop into a 5-4-1 if you lose the ball. I think as long as we're only if we can get out of Poland, with a favourable result, i.e. no worse than one goal down, I think we can do something at Ibrox with more bodies in, everyone up a bit more up to speed. I know it's only 2 games, but that can make a difference for Czerny, can make a difference for Sterling, can make a difference for Danilo being back. Your squad, like Kieran said, your squad starts to look a bit more healthy if those players are in the team. I would be 5-3-2 and just white knuckle ride that Kiev away game on Tuesday and just try and get out there alive in the tie. And that would be it. I don't see, in a 5-3-2, I don't really see how we create because it's not something we work on a lot. But I think if you put a back five, so Balogun, Proper and Suter, and you've got Sterling, Diomande and Barron in front of them, I don't have half the fear that I do with what I seen on Saturday about conceding chances, conceding goals. I think you've got 2 centre-halves. Okay, Suter looked dodgy. I'm going to say 3 because I think they can all do well physically in there. You get 3 centre-halves that are good at defending the box. You've got 3 midfielders in Sterling, Barron, Diomande that can go press, can get close to people and can win the ball back and can pass. I think that would be the best bet as a 5-3-2. Clement won't do that. It'll be 4-2-3-1. It'll be the same. We'll give away chances and I'll be trying to defend people when I'm not criticizing. Why people will be asking why I'm not criticising Clement anymore. I'm just not going anymore. I'm going to say just as it is, I would go 5-3-2. I think that's the most logical thing to do in this game.
Yeah, Kieran, John mentioned a few players there, I guess, that would come in and we think will change the team a little bit. Hopefully, Robin Proper being one of them. If Clement said he didn't play against Hearts because he hadn't trained with the team yet, hopefully he's been able to at least get a light training session in today and he'll train tomorrow with the team as well, and that'll mean he starts to get familiar. So I'm hoping he makes a big difference to our defence throughout the season, not just for Tuesday. Dujon Sterling, I think, is a really important player for us just for his physicality in there, and I would agree. I'd probably put him in midfield. A lot of people are calling for him to play right back and just go slot straight back in there. I think on Tuesday night against Dynamo Kiev, I would play him in midfield, as John said, and just have that combative nature in there, and have that, I guess, more defensively solid outlook of it. I don't know how realistic that is on the back of his injury, that he could come in and just start a game straight away, and then hopefully Václav Czerny as well is in there from the start. How big a difference do you think, if those 3 players can start, that it can make to us on Tuesday?
100%, yeah. And in terms of Sterling, you think of him away to Benfica last year, he was brilliant. Am I right in saying he was centre mid for the game away to Betis, and he was outstanding as well? That's really what we're lacking at the moment. I said it earlier, Raskin, Diomande and Barron in the middle. Sterling, Diomande and Barron would work fine for me, but Sterling's a huge player for us. Probably our biggest sellable asset as a young talent that could do well and go on to make his money. he would give us a lift. Proper would give us a lift as well. In terms of Proper, his experience, given he's only 30, and he captained that 20 side to a Champions League spot in the Eredivisie last year, Champions League qualifying spot, and they came third, put it that way. He would be a huge lift. Tierney as well, I think he is quite quick, and I think he can play as an inverted 10, if I remember correctly, watching highlight videos of him and Danilo linking up quite a lot. So it would certainly be a positive to see Tierney start, or the flip side would be Scott Wright again.
We're finishing on a good note there, Kieran, and you're just blowing it with that last sentence, right? Let's wrap it up there just with a final prediction. John, what are you going for score-wise on Tuesday night?
3-1 to Kiev.
Think we're going to score?
Yeah,
that's a lot to go on that. Kieran, what are you going for?
I'll go for a positive one each.
I like that thinking. I'm going for a 2-1 defeat, and we'll still be well in it, coming back to Hampden. Right. Thank you very much to John and Kyran for joining us tonight. Thank you very much to the huge number of you that have been listening tonight. Well over 500 of you tuning in right now. So great to see you all and great to have you with us. If you enjoyed the content, please do like the video. Please do continue to comment your thoughts, and please do subscribe to the TII channel, whether that be on YouTube or on any of the audio platforms that such Spotify, Apple Music, etc. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Hopefully it'll be a positive result for Rangers on Tuesday night, and we'll be back after the game with Ross and Ian to give our immediate match reaction to whatever happens out in Poland. Thanks very much again. Until next time, goodbye.